What a pleasure it is to be here today with you and moderating this amazing panel, leveraging data at the edge. We have four amazing panelists here today that we're going to learn from. And I'm a big believer that everybody has something to teach and something to learn. So I'm really excited to have come here today to learn with these amazing individuals, to find out what drives them, their passion and their mission that they're on, and how we're meaningfully leveraging data to improve the quality of lives of the people that we care about and those that we've yet to meet. With that being said, thank you so much to our panelists for joining us here today, for taking time away from your families and your companies in order to share and to contribute to this ecosystem. I'm really excited not just to learn from you all today, but to take that information and these relationships and turn it into action, because that's the power of data. Data utilized for good turns into meaningful change that impacts lives in positive ways so that we can transform our world. But it's got to be more than an intellectual exercise. It's got to be something that we act on. With that said, I'll give you a quick little background about myself, my company, and how we're leveraging data at the edge. Just kind of prime the pump a little bit here. And then I'm going to turn it over to each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves and their organization, their true north, really a 30-second elevator pitch on why they're up here. And then we'll get into some of the specifics of the work that they're doing. And this is going to be a lot of fun and should be very actionable. Following this question and answer session, we want to open up to the audience as well to learn and answer your questions. And I'm just grateful to be here today. Again, my name is David Reeser. I'm the CEO and founder of Opiaid. Opiaid is a data science company making the treatment of substance use disorder safer and more effective. And before I tell you how we do that or what we do, I always start with the why. The why behind Opiaid is that we love our neighbors. We don't refer to anyone as an addict. We see people with infinite and inherent worth, meaning there's no beginning to that worth, there's no end to it, and they were born with it and it can't be taken with them or taken away from them. So when you see people as a 10, everyone is a 10 in my eyes, truly. When you see someone as a 10, you leverage technology in a meaningful way to help bring them home at night. And that's exactly what we're doing at Opiaid. Specifically, what we do is that we partner with clinics that provide the gold standard of treatment for opioid use disorder. This type of treatment is called MAT, medically assisted treatment, or MOUD. So we collaborate with the clinics that provide this level of care. And what we do is we integrate to their electronic health records and extract data that helps us better understand if our neighbors are trending towards recovery or relapse. And then we personalize that treatment approach with biometrics. As you can see, I'm wearing a Samsung Galaxy Watch and a Galaxy Ring. We've partnered with Samsung and have developed unique biometric algorithms that help us to quantify levels of withdrawal and identify medication compliance. We've done this with several $1 million that we've won from the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and some of our algorithms are currently going through FDA for software as a medical device. And the purpose is very simple. We want to leverage this technology in order to provide timely and actionable data that can help support clinical decision-making in a way that honors our neighbors and gives the clinicians the data they need when they need it to prevent relapses, improve retention in treatment, increase revenues for the clinic that provide this valuable technology, and then reduce the cost to the payers for managing this chronic disease. And we do this above all else because we love our neighbors and we want to see them come home at night. So that is Opiaid in a nutshell. What I'd love to do next is we're just going to go through each of you wonderful individuals. And I just love to hear a little bit more, maybe a 30-second, 45-second understanding of what you do and why you're here. Starting with you, Sheila, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Thank you. So pleasure to be here. Before I dive into introducing myself, I do want to just make space for a little bit and just acknowledge that our democracy is not okay. But we're here, we're in community, and this is the place where I want to be because this is the place where I believe change happens. So my name is Sheila Fasil. I'm the founder of Facilitate Change. I describe myself as a social change futurist, which means I see a future where technology fundamentally transforms how we address our toughest social problems, particularly in healthcare. So the mission of my organization is to bring patient-centered innovation into the health tech space. There's much too much failure. 98% of digital health startups fail. You're talking about roughly $2 billion for every 100 startups. Building a platform called Compass, where we're going to make it much easier to talk to patients directly in their native language in the ways that make sense to them, to understand their health experience, as well as collect their health data, analyze that using AI, and then generate insights for health tech innovators, researchers, and startups to actually create products that reflect patient needs. And one of the things that's incredibly important in the model that we're creating is this concept of data sovereignty, meaning that individuals ought to be able to control, consent, and be compensated for their health data. And we're using a blockchain infrastructure to be able to make that happen.
Wow, that's exciting. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Lance, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, David. So I'm Lance Okeke. I'm associate professor of medicine at Duke, and just want to say this disclaimer that the opinions shared are my own and not that of Duke University. In terms of like what I do, on the academic side, I run a research program that looks at how we can leverage data science to improve the HIV care continuum from HIV prevention to comorbidity management. I'm an HIV provider, I'm a clinician, and I'm also a health services researcher. And in that regard, we found out very early on in the infancy of our program that data science is the way forward, and using kind of automated ways to use the resource that's the archive of data that we have available in large health systems is powerful, kind of providing better care for our patients within the space of HIV. I think many of you know that the end of the HIV epidemic was at hand. It probably isn't anymore because of the gaps in support that we're getting from the governmental level, but we'll do what we can, we'll persist. And what we do is use algorithms to ensure and improve access to HIV prevention strategies in a number of different clinical settings. So large data models to kind of like best identify people who can benefit from PrEP beyond what the providers can do just by using their Gestalt. And AI models to actually start to kind of classify people who are benefiting from PrEP, who are potentially going to fall out of HIV care for people who have been diagnosed already, and people who have fallen out of care. How do we kind of classify who's actually truly fallen out versus who is transferred out of care? We're doing all that in automated ways right now within an academic health setting. We hope to grow that going forward to scale that to other health systems across the country as we get our process ready.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you so very much. I want to come back to you and find out what meaningful collaboration looks like for you, Lance. But first, I want to turn the mic over to Mila. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I feel like David already won you all over because he called you a 10. So I've got to think about my own compliment by the end of this 30 minutes. I'll be working on that while answering questions. So Mila Maloney, Chief Growth Officer for Applied Sciences for Premier Incorporated. We're a business based right here in Charlotte, where we represent 4,400 hospitals and health systems, as well as 325,000 other provider sites. And we help them with many things. We're a healthcare alliance. We help them with purchasing, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We also help them tremendously with technology, data, and research. My team specifically works with life sciences companies working on data, research, technology, AI, all of the important words that make me appropriate to be on this panel today.
Love it. Wonderfully energetic as well. Mila sits on a lot of panels. She's really excellent. In fact, I didn't realize until I got here today, not today, but when I saw the lineup for panelists, I'm like, I actually know Mila. We had an interaction through the FDA Early Payer Program. And Premier is just a wonderful organization. It actually helped shape our commercialization strategy that helped us to win our recent notice of award for our fast track from NIDA. So thank you, Mila, for being here. Thank you for your support that actually helped OPA move forward too. This is a collaboration in action that's already paid off, and it has been meaningful. So thank you.
So am I done? I can just get off the panel.
Oh yeah, you're good. Yeah, I knew you might have to leave early. So I think we just dropped the mic. We move on. David, would you like to go next?
Definitely. Hello, everybody. My name is David Armstead, the Executive Director of Central City Consulting. I had a spiel set up, but some life happened today. So I tell folks, how I got started in this work is for my day job, I work at a clinic where I am the social determinants of health coordinator. That fuels and pays for Central City Consultant. I just started this company in November. So today I was laid off. Yeah, so life happened and our democracy is literally in jeopardy. People are getting laid off in real time, so y'all know. Enough of the sad story. So that was my day job, and I say my gay job. I am I sit as the board of governors for the Human Rights Campaign in Louisiana. I also am the co-chair of the steering committee there, and working within that system, learning the political realm, and understanding that the power that the people have in their vote kind of launched me into understanding data, understanding polling. So Central City Consulting was birthed out of that. My passion for underserved communities. So basically, we are a data research and polling and political consulting firm. Sorry, today's a very weird day for me.
You're doing great.
Sorry.
You're doing great.
So we prioritize underserved communities. So I'm from New Orleans, born and raised in the central city of New Orleans, hence the name, where majority African American, majority Democratic area. But when you go around and ask these folks, have you ever been polled for anything? Because we always talk about the Axios poll, the AP polls, and these folks are looking at me like I haven't been talked to by any of that stuff. So then I kind of went outside and decided to talk to more people, and I realized that folks that look like me, folks that look like my sister, folks that looks like my trans brothers and sisters were not included in any of these. So I'm the kind of person, if I see a problem, I'm going to find a solution. And the solution was me starting Central City Consulting.
That's amazing. Yeah, you guys can clap. You hear me? I think my mic might be a little bit flighty. I can speak up. You can hear me okay now? No, you need a mic. No, I need a mic. Yeah, I think they got a new one. I wish people have a mic. Awesome. All right, we're back. Awesome. And I just want to put out there, this is an old adage, but it's one that's true, is that you can go by yourself and go fast, or you can go with others and go far. So I would just encourage you in this moment that, you know, of difficulty, of change, this is an opportunity to really craft your path, but don't feel like this is a path that you're walking alone. Part of the power of being here and being with all these professionals who are equally passionate, and there may be some significant overlap with your passions and your mission and your calling, that there's a collaboration in this room right now that can open up your next opportunity or enhance, you know, the one that you currently have. You know, so
For sure, I'm always, if you want to invest, hey.
Yeah, that's right. Or like we talked about in our last panel, where we talked about one of our previous panels, where we talked about collaborate or not. Collaborate or not, there might be a strategic partnership in here that will help elevate the work that you're so very passionate about, so that you can help your community. But I'm just so grateful for people like you who see a problem and have the courage to do something about it. And a time of great change that is also a great opportunity. We get to craft the future. The best way to predict the future is to actually create it. And we have the power in this room to do that. So don't feel overwhelmed by the things that are happening that may be out of our control. Let's leverage what is in our control and make the best next decision. Because it's very hard to know exactly what to do the next 10 things, but we always know the next right thing to do. So do the next right thing. And I'm totally believing for good for you. And I'm declaring the good to happen in your life too, David.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a sad story.
Yeah, no, dude, it's the best things are born out of challenge. Without challenge, there's no growth.
For sure.
But we're here with you, brother. Sheila, if you would please, I would love to know a bit more. And just so you know, we had questions prepared in advance, and I'm really terrible at following rules because I'm an innovator and entrepreneur, so I kind of threw them out. But at least I had the courtesy of checking with our panelists first to make sure that they were good with it. But if you could tell us a little bit, Sheila, about your why, your true north, what guides you, what are the principles, what's something you're very excited about that you're doing right now?
A great question. So if you've ever heard this quote, this is really my true north. Every system is perfectly designed to produce the results that it gets. So if we're getting bad results, it's because the system is designed to do so. And if we want to get better results, then we need to redesign the system. So it's a way that gives me a sense of like context for why things happen, but also empowerment in terms of, okay, how do we really affect change? And this is a bit of a full circle moment for me because, my first job as a graduate student in the School of Public Health was actually working for a federally funded project, working to create better solutions to increase medication adherence amongst marginalized communities dealing with HIV and AIDS. And at the time, this was back in, 2006, 2007, right? We were just getting medications, right? And we were just learning about the importance of adherence. And what we did was we went out and talked to patients. And we found out about what their struggles and barriers and motivations were in terms of medication adherence. What was powerful about that experience was we talked to patients who were struggling, but we also talked to patients that were actually managing their medications very well. And what we found through that process was that the patients who had developed peer support networks were the ones that were really thriving. They found community, they shared information, they shared best practices. And so we ended up developing a curriculum to teach community-based hospitals and clinics how to incorporate peers into their care delivery model. Now, it took us probably about 2 months from the time we did our first interview to the time we were able to execute, right? Because it's a long process to talk to people, collect their stories, understand it deeply, identify the patterns and trends, and turn it into actionable insights. And so I saw the power of that over and over again all throughout my career. I've spent just under 2 decades in the healthcare space. I've seen a lot of failure in the healthcare space, where patients have been like systematically excluded. And I will raise my hand and say that I was one of those people in the behind the curtain, making rules and policies for efficiency and productivity that was effectively cutting out patients that look like me. But also my last role was Director of Innovation for a Health Equity Accelerator at Boston Medical Center, where as a more authentic advocate, I was still witnessing a lot of failure. And the root cause that I found in terms of like, why is this system consistently failing our patients is because patients are not at the table. We're designing for patients rather than with them, designing for communities rather than with them. I believe it was this gentleman here who asked the question about like, how do we actually make this happen where the patients and the people at the sharp end of the problem are the ones leading the conversation? So that's my true north. That's why I do this work. And that's why I believe in the power of the tools like AI to make it so that patients can be deeply immersed and continuously centered throughout the process of innovation so that we can put good products into their hands that actually help them.
Very well said. Patients have to be at the center of this because if we build a solution for a problem that's not congruent with the use case, that's not culturally sensitive, that's not integrated properly, it's been an incredible waste of time. And this comes back to the true north. Do we? Yeah. Hey, that's thank you very much. Yeah, that's the whole piece here. Lived experience, being thoughtful, not just about solving the problem, but doing it in a way where it actually becomes useful, and impactful. So thank you so very much. I'm going to turn the new question to you, Mila. Can you share with us maybe 1 or 2 use cases of AI happening at Premier that are particularly exciting and impactful that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that strikes me, and when I saw your innovative breakthrough technology that you were bringing forth, we see so many new technologies at Premier. People bring things to us to get feedback from our member healthcare systems The problem is, how do you then get it to the patient at the right time? And that's really a challenge because often the best innovations are based on catching a patient early, and you don't usually catch a patient with a situation until it's later. And often the treatments are not going to be as good when you get them later. So we had an opportunity to do some identification of early stage lung cancer. There are huge breakthroughs of patients with early stage lung cancer. However, by the time you're symptomatic, you're probably stage 4, and the prognosis looks completely different. So we decided to test this out using AI on a large data set. There's a health information exchange in the New York City area. It's the largest in the country, called HealthX. It's pre-consented patient data for research. And we went in based on our literature searches thinking we would be able to find 30,000 of what are called incidental pulmonary nodules, which can be 7 to 10% of the time an indicator of early stage lung cancer, but they're often overlooked because it's incidental in finding. They were going in for something else, and for whatever reason, the follow-up is just not great. We went in 3 weeks, we got through 60 million patient records and found 151,000 incidental pulmonary nodules. Less than half had any follow-up. 7 to 10% of those patients have lung cancer. They're going to be back at stage 4. That's great. And you said something earlier. We don't do this either. We don't do things to be intellectually interesting. Well, that makes a really nice publication. So what? Now we just know we can find them. Now we're working with a healthcare system in the New York City market, taking that algorithm and applying it to their data to make sure it works in the real world, but then also teaching providers what to do with them. They learned at some point, but they're keeping up with so many things and they're not used to seeing patients this early. Teaching's probably the wrong word. Reminding, technology enabling the discussions, things like that. And so that's the place we're in right now. And we have many examples in that. We're doing this in Alzheimer's to try to find patients early, other rare diseases. And to me, these are important cases for AI, machine learning, natural language processing, is to find these patients as early as possible and give them a chance to live through their disease or situation.
Wow, that
Dope is the first. I've never heard dope before.
Yeah.
That example. Thank you.
Yeah, that's absolutely
My
incredible.
favorite.
And just think about the fact that, these individuals are missing those early days and what the downstream effects of that are. Because I can tell you personally from my life that my father got diagnosed with lung cancer when I was 16 and passed away. And had they caught that on a simple $30 chest x-ray, I might still have my father around. So an innovation like this in AI, where we could have quickly scanned these records and identified this early, we could have our family members back, meaningful people in our community who are contributing and making life worth living, and this is the application of AI, which I believe actually makes us more human. I tend to believe that AI is actually going to improve humanity. I don't fear it. We tend to fear things we don't understand, right? So when we replace the fear with knowledge, we have peace again, and I really feel like we're in this place where we can leverage this tool in a way that is good. We're going to have to check our hearts. And we're going to have to spend time understanding what truly makes us human and focus on being great at that, because that will never be replaced. And then the way that we leverage these tools, if we do it with humanity, with dignity, with honor for our neighbor, we won't have to worry about the downstream negative effects because we're in the driver's seat. But we have to collectively decide that we want to do good like they're doing at Premier. So thank you very much. That was a wonderful example. Lance, I'm enjoying so much getting to know our panelists. I had a little bit of a conversation with them prior to coming up here. One thing that we had talked about was meaningful partnerships. I wanted this to be more than an educational or intellectual exercise. What can we meaningfully do to partner with you and the work that you're doing next, or individuals who are in the audience, to take what you've done and take it to the next level to be able to impact more individuals? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, I'm learning. That's why I'm here, right? These are the type of platforms. But I actually want to give some support to what Sheila said about going back to empowering patients to push these innovations forward. I think as a clinician, I always talk about the fact that I work with the most marginalized amongst us in HIV, people from adverse SDOH profiled, marginalized populations on many fronts. And I think for the room, one thing to take away is what Sheila said already, which is the conversation of data science and how it improves care can end from the patient's perspective with the question, you're using my data to do what? if that's the narrative, then you fail. It's like, you're gonna go and take your cool wearable and shove it somewhere, right? So that can't be the end of that narrative. And I think it's a responsibility of us. And we can work as clinicians, as intermediaries in those conversations to change that narrative of that disempowerment that comes from the power of data that our patients don't realize. We're doing it for them, but they don't understand it, and we haven't explained it to them. That's why they don't understand. And that's what we need to be doing. And so that's what we do in our own work. That empowerment doesn't just come from being informational, right? It comes from empowering them to the next step of true co-development, saying, how can we use your context expertise to ask better questions of our data, right? I could tell you all the 83 features in the first HIV prevention model that we came up with like 5 years ago, right? I can rattle them off. That's great. I can't tell you what's happening specifically in your own community. That's context expertise. It's expertise that they should be paid for, quite frankly. And so that's what meaningful partnership for us looks like, in that I can sit here and say it all sounds great and all sounds good, but as a singular person in an academic institution, also works and sees patients in 2 different clinics, rural and urban. These are all great ideas, but the amplification of that work will never happen if you're expecting me to see my patients 2 days a week, write these grants, get out there, engage with the community. And that's where groups that are really kind of like have refined processes on like gathering data, engaging with community, and making these ideas go are really the lifeblood. You know, the time of like the 5-year R01 cycle for innovative projects in academia is dead. This is the beginning of the end of it. Maybe in many ways, and I'm saying this as an NIH-funded researcher, again, opinions of my own, that this is a forced reset for us to kind of rethink how we get out of our academic tower, ivory tower, and engage with entrepreneurs in this room a little bit better. We need to become more like you, because the old model of how we did things is dying quickly. And so meaningful partnerships means coming to our turf and allowing us avenues to come to your turf to have these conversations on how we really, like Michael said in one of our conversations earlier, truly becomes we. So.
That's fantastic. And I do think that this is an opportunity, to your point, Dr. Lance, that with some of these grant funds drying up, that we have to rethink and we have to take charge. And I can tell you at OPA, we're very excited about academic partnerships, and not just being able to learn and collaborate with universities, but to be able to provide opportunities for the students, you know, the future clinicians of the world, and to improve care, but do it collaboratively together. And one thing that we've learned, and just something I wanted to touch on, because I feel like it's appropriate, is that, you know, our neighbors who participate in our research, you know, we make sure not only to be able to integrate their thoughts and their feelings and their desires and making sure that it's being built appropriately, but they're actually part of the team and they know it. And part of the motivation is what you're doing today is going to improve the care of someone you love, of people you may not even know. All the data points, everything that we're taking in, it's actually going to make things better and safer for people down the road. You're a hero. This is not just utilizing your data to make your care better. We're actually shaping care in a way that it's going to help people you may never meet, but you'll have a tremendous impact on. Thank you so much. You are a hero to me. And that is actually the truth. When we realize that we're in this together and that we can make this impact, but we can only do it together, I think it's something beautiful. It's a real truth. I believe we have another minute yet. May I ask one more question? Is that okay? All right. I could stay here all day. So, you know, touching on the partnership, sort of extending your ability to take that next step, Sheila, you know, I'm curious, what does a meaningful partnership look like? Or, you know, what sort of help or collaboration are you looking for that will help advance your true north?
So definitely where we are right now, we're on the cusp of completing the prototype for our platform. So we've already secured a couple of important partnerships. One is with Boston Medical Center, which one of the largest central hospitals, as well as Neighbor Health, which is the largest community-based clinic system in Massachusetts. And we also have some incredible startups in our pipeline, our innovation pipeline, that have, prototype or MVP level products that are ready to scale. So right now, the only piece I'm missing is like the collaborator that can come with the money, okay? To like bring all that together and like, let's get this engine rolling. We are at the step where it's like, we want that investment to take this product on the road and to scale it. And also, I think I would love to work with people like David. You are the expert because you're on the front line. You get it, you live it. And it's people like you that I want to partner with to make sure that you are litmus testing our AI, litmus testing the questions that we're asking patients, giving us that like insider perspective that is incredibly valuable. So for me, that would be incredible as well.
Thank you so much. And with that, can we take some audience questions? Would that be okay? Awesome. We have this young man up front.
Thank you so much. My name is Igor Gorlatov with Advisory 5. It looks to me that I am at a different event from the morning, like completely different perspectives on the same challenge. One is more kind of traditional, metrics-driven, mechanistic, corporate, which makes a lot of sense, but it's not human sense. It's like organizational corporate sense. What you're talking about is a very human story, but the power balance is on that side. Like you said, money, resources, access. So there is a bit of a disconnect between these two narratives. And it's good that this conference is kind of bringing you together, but not at the same panel. So what are your thoughts on bridging this gap? And what have you seen work in that space? Thank you.
Well, I would say that I just really want to give flowers to Michael and Lee, because this forum, this space would not have been possible without their vision. So hats off to them first. May not all be on the same panel together, but believe me, we're having the conversations. And it is because of people like that, visionaries who've been doing this work for the last 10 years, laying the groundwork, making it possible for us to even think this way, giving us the tools and frameworks. Look at that sprint that happened and those wonderful pitches that we saw, right? I think the next step is let's take what we're talking about in this room and let's schedule some calls and have some action plans and some goals set. And when we come back next year, how do we hold each other accountable? I think that's the next step.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that too. So Central City Consulting is actually here partnering with one of those innovative sprint teams, the collaborators. The cool thing about ours, we actually collaborated with 3 cities from 2 states. So we have New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Miami. So what we are planning on doing, we actually have built out an AI health risk assessment. So when we get folks' data in, we're able to kind of give them a health score of here's some health issues that you say you have, here's some recommendations of where you should go. And it's all culturally based, right? So understanding that, yes, we need the data to make sure that we can find out what the real issues are. But then once you find it out, the question is always, what's next? A lot of people just say, well, go to this doctor or go to this hospital, go to this clinic. And a lot of times not knowing if it's culturally competent, not knowing if it's ADA compliant, not knowing if there are interpreters there. Like we literally just had someone come up and just talk about how next year we need to make sure that there's interpreters here. And that's something that we think about, but it doesn't click until someone else tells us, right? So that's kind of the humanity part. It's in us, but it doesn't happen until someone tells us. And once we hear that, then it clicks. So
yeah, that's interesting. Igor, a friend of mine, who I haven't spoken to in a while. Very good to see you. Thank you for sitting in the front row. Sometimes people are nervous about sitting in the front row. We don't bite. And I love to see the faces of my friends. Just to touch on this just for a moment, I think we need to align our true north, and figure out what a mutual win looks like. and that's partly the collaboration. It's partly working with organizations like Dime to ensure that, we have that political understanding of what's happening, but also align the commercial investor interests, with the interests of these organizations that are doing the good, the feet on the ground. But with that, thank you so much for your question. I want to make sure we open up the rest of the audience. Do we have some more questions? Learned everything that you came here for? Nothing about what you see on stage? No additional questions?
Can I?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Lance.
So I want to address Igor's question because it's a great one. It's a big question, honestly. Nobody has a singular answer to it. I do think forums like this are a start. And I think what it catalyzes is people in the community, people on the front lines speaking the language of corporations, data-driven organizations with metrics, forcing y'all to speak the language of the front line of the community as well. Because by direction of value there, it's unequivocal, right? But forums like this catalyze us learning each other's language, quite frankly. And I think too often in society, too often in this civilization, we're really good at talking past each other, right? You're not listening to me. I want to be heard, but the truth is you don't even know anything about how to speak my language. So let's find places to teach each other. So that's a concrete example of that was pitches. Now, I'm sorry I was late for some of them, but I had the privilege of judging some of these groups earlier in the process. These are community-based, kind of community-driven grassroots organizations speaking the language of scalability and commercial value and pitching their genuine ideas to these groups. That's what needs to be happening, right? This is something that Michael and DHIT did to get these groups who probably had no idea of what MVP was, to speak this language in real time here. So I think to answer your question, Igor, this is a start of hopefully something that can continue. You just have to learn each other's language quite simply for people to get there. So.